Charles, I have some very exciting news. I
Very exciting news.
it's different. I'm trying something new. It's very unlike
Uh-huh.
me, but I've switched pens this week.
Wow, that's a big deal, you know? I think it's a quite a big change in your life. I hope you're doing okay.
It changes everything, and I made too many changes at once. Not only did I change the pen I was using, but I also changed the color ink that the pen is.
Mm.
So normally, if you remember, I use the G2 pen, black ink.
Yes.
I've recently switched to the Uniball Onyx, and it's blue. So
Is it like a bright blue or a dark blue?
it's like a good blue, not
A good
too.
blue.
It's definitely not like, is this like navy or is this black? Like, it's blue, but it's not bright.
Mm. It's not bright. It's not a light blue. So there's no glitter in it.
No glitter in it, but it's clearly blue.
Clearly blue.
So what
That's
had happened
that's
was um I always keep pens on me, as a gentleman should. And what always ends up happening is I take my pen out of my pocket and leave it in my from my office pen, and it ends up in my room, and then I forget, like I'm in a rush or something, and I come to the office, and now I had a box of pens in my desk, and now they're not here. So I had to write a note to something. So I asked the parish admin if I could borrow one of her pens, and she gave me this. And I wrote with it, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And so we had a box of pen. I jumped in it way too fast. I had a box of pens. I said, "Can we let's just take the box, put it in my office. I'll leave. These could be my office pens." I still love the G2. That they're no hard.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm gonna go back. I'm trying it out. It's a sample.
That's good. So your whole reason for trying a new pen is you stole all of your current pens
Stealing
and
is a
had to steal
sin.
someone else.
And so I gave it back right away, which is also uncharacteristic.
This is a lot of development, a lot of personal growth here. You've been ordained for a while. You're coming up on a milestone birthday. It's great to see you mature, father, right?
Well,
And
well, it's funny because both of us are holding pens on a video recording, and
yes,
it for no reason. We're not going to be writing much down while we're talking. But I noticed you
no,
have a weird looking pen.
yes. So my pen is I like to fidget with it and chew on it, which is probably not productive. But I have the Papermate Flare medium, and I was first exposed to these back when I was an intern at the U.S. House of Representatives. So just humble
Ooh.
brag there, sneak that in, yeah. And I remember one of my first days on the job. We I had to take notes, and I grabbed like the from the supply closet a blue pen and a notepad. And the blue pen was Papermate Flare medium as well. And so that was what I used for notes, which I was in Congress like, okay, well, that's a pen you try. But what made it more exciting is that the member of Congress for whom I interned, there's a thing that a lot of members of Congress, I didn't realize this as much, but they sign a lot of letters,
Mm.
like circular letters. So other members will all write a letter about a current event or an issue, and they'll get other members to sign it. Sometimes it can be like 8 pages of signatures. And a lot of them use the same pens. And so we would get these letters that would come in, and we have to take it to the congressman, and he would sign it and then pass the letter back. I always made a copy of the letter so I remembered what we signed. Uh, and he always signed himself too. There's no forging. But the pen that they use is Papermate Flare, and I tried it and I liked it. I'd seen it being used in before. It's not a super strange pen. But what I like about it, and the reason I think members of Congress like about it, is because it is a little bit on the thicker side in terms of, the G2 is a very fine point pen. I don't know what your Onyx looks like, but G2 is very precise, very narrow, right? You could take very minute notes and fill in little boxes. Papermate Flare is not that. Papermate Flare is a statement pen. It's not a Sharpie, so it's smaller than that. So it's not what the president currently uses, but it is definitely bolder and more articulate. And it also, I have very poor penmanship. I'm left-handed, as you repeatedly make fun of me for.
I
But
was going to
St. Peter was
ask
left-handed. Yeah.
because you probably run into the problem of your smudges.
Yes, you can't. Yeah, because when a lefty writes, you push the pen. You don't pull it unless you write with a hook. So President Obama was left-handed. He wrote with a very strong hook, so he could pull the pen. So we can't use the fountain pens because those are done by pulling, not by pushing. But the felt helps, and so pushing, and it's thicker, so it kind of makes your handwriting look a little bit better than it actually is. And I'm so in love with this pen that when I went to get my driver's license, I in the state of Michigan where I grew up, you to do your signature that gets put on your driver's license, they give you a little card and you have to sign in this yellow box on the card, and then they scan it and that uploads your signature. I remember from I think either like my learner's permit or maybe watching relative of mine go to the driver's or the Secretary of State, which is the DMV equivalent, um, using the ballpoint pen they gave them. I'm like, ballpoint pens don't work for me. You're pushing, it smudges, whatever. So I brought a pen to get my driver's license and I signed in the box with it. And on my now long expired Michigan driver's license, is big, bold Charles W. Busch in the Papermate flare that was transcribed onto my ID. So yes, I think we both have a similar appreciation for writing instruments. That's not why we became friends. It's not why we are friends. We have differences. You like the G2. The G2 is a good one. I used that before. It's what they use at the conclave. Is that what inspired you to get the G2? Is it because the Cardinals write their ballots on the G2?
No, actually, I had no idea. You must have told me that before. I like the G2. I've been using it since high school. I think it's a good academic pen, right? You're making notes in the margins of schools. I have very, very tiny penmanship. You've seen the letters I write. Everyone complains they can't read my handwriting. It's so small, so I needed that fine point pen to like, so I could actually read it. Otherwise, it's just like a big black glob. The fountain pens are really a challenge for me because I have to like exaggerate my handwriting, and it just takes so much time. Where I write very fast, very quick. So the G2 is the perfect pen for that. This on Uniball Onyx, and we are not sponsored by any of these pens yet.
Not yet.
The
Yeah.
the the Onyx pen says it's micro, so it does have a very fine point.
You're
So
holding it up to the camera for our viewers, but
yes, so it
yeah.
is. It's I mean it's tiny. It's actually probably a little less thick than the G2, but it's so
No,
smooth, so smooth, um, and
like
it's really exciting. But Charles, as much as we are very interested in these pens, I'm sure now our listeners are more interested in us. And if they haven't lost interest in us by now, then we're golden. This is
exactly.
our
If you've made
loyal
it this
viewership.
far, you're definitely gonna like the rest of the show and the series. So, yeah, it's a good point because your father Lomnitzer of the Diocese of Bridgeport. Is that correct? Do I have your name correct?
The Father Lomnitzer, it's not as hard to say as many people think it is. It's 3 syllables. You say all the letters pronounced. It's German. It's very precise. Um, and yeah, priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport for just celebrate 3 years. And I was ordained in 2022, so it's just now I'm over the 3 year mark. So somebody said to me the other day after mass, "You're no longer a baby priest." I said, "No, I'm officially a toddler now."
That's apropos. Yes, he was a toddler. But so you're dating for 3 years, and where are you signed now? What's your current job role? Is it a job? What do you call it? Assignment role?
Assignment, because
Assignment.
it's not a job; it's a vocation,
Oh,
and right, it's a calling, and so I don't get to pick where I go. The bishop tells me it's my promise of obedience. Thankfully, the bishop has assigned me to St. Mary's in Ridgefield. I'm the parochial vicar here, which means I'm like the assistant priest or curate. Everyone thinks I'm the number 2 priest, but there's 3 of us, so I'm actually the number 3 priest because it goes by
oh.
the hierarchies, years ordained. I told the bishop, everyone knows, I think, Pope Francis's famous quote, where you have to smell like your sheep. So I told my bishop, Bishop Caggiano, from the Let Me Be Frank podcast, as people know, I told him, I said, thank you so much for assigning me in Ridgefield because here the sheep smell very nice.
Well, that's good. For the sake of everybody, you should be always, good smelling priest is a good priest, right? In general, I mean, yes, I don't think he meant it as literally the Holy Father as perhaps you're taking it. So are you surveying your cologne and perfume of your parishioners to like find the
No,
right variety?
I'm not
No.
wearing Chanel number 5 or anything, but I'm sure people in my parish are.
So yeah, well, that's you gotta blend in with the crowd. Well, that's good. So you've been there, and and you're originally from Connecticut, right? So it's your home state. You're a nutmegger, as they say, people
And
who live
yes,
in
thank you.
Connecticut.
The proper name for somebody who is from Connecticut is a Connecticutian. So I'm a proud Connecticutian. I've lived in the diocese of Bridgeport my whole life, with the exception of 2 years when we were at Catholic U, and seminary was in New York, but it felt like I was close enough to home, anyways. Yeah, I grew up in a town called Trumbull. Um, the famous Jonathan Trumbull. One of his relatives is the famous Jonathan Trumbull who did the portrait of George Washington.
Ah, yes.
I think it was one of his sons. So that's always very fascinating. Um, yeah, I forget what the rest of the, I forgot what else you asked me.
So you're from Connecticut. We've established that, and
Yes,
you have a long legacy. Your birth certificate is indeed from the state of
it says
Connecticut. So
Bridgeport, so I'm a true Diocese of Bridgeport priest. I was born in the city of Bridgeport, and I like to think of myself as a sort of hometown hero. A native, a local, one of the people. As I think it's in Hebrews. He says, right, a priest is taken from the people and given back to the people. So I like to think of myself as the exemplary hometown vocation.
taken from Bridgeport, given to Bridgeport. So yes, but you were
Yeah.
taken from Bridgeport. You've gone a few different places, right, to get back to Bridgeport. So you're Fairfield Prep grad, and then you went to university. Right. Well, Fairfield Prep was big for you, right? We shouldn't gloss over that too quickly, right? That was a big part of your
No,
self identification.
prep. Yeah, and prep would be very upset if we just glossed over them. No, prep is an all boys Jesuit high school. It was my first experience of Catholic education. I was a public school kid, all the way up until that point, and a legacy. My dad went to prep. My eldest brother went to prep, and it was perhaps some of the most formative 4 years of my life. Just the all boys environment, the sports, the education. It was really a place where all like my closest childhood friends, we all went to the same high school, so like that it really formed a strong bond between me and those guys. And yeah, I've been back a few times. I was back last year for Immaculate Conception Mass, which is really cool. School looks totally different. It's like a small college campus now. It's insane the things that these kids have. I mean, it's awesome, but it's funny like when my parents talk about like they have to used to like research things through a library, and I had like a computer, so they never felt bad for me. It's like these kids have a 3D printing lab, a robotics lab. Um, it's like and that they're building on an addition for a new gym and a new art center. It's like these kids don't know how good they have. I'm like, wow, I'm officially getting old. But then from prep, I went to Catholic University, where some would say that's where we became friends.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. The history on that is debatable. We argue about it often because I have no
Yeah.
memory. Um, but yeah, so I was 2 years at Catholic University, which I was a philosophy major there. I think of this story all the time. I love telling people this. Because my dad meant it as a joke and it was funny. I told my dad I was going to Catholic U to study philosophy, and he said, "That's awesome. You'll have 4 years to contemplate unemployment." And I was like the classic. So I was there for 2 years, and then I transferred. Regardless to the misinformation you'll tell people of me dropping out,
Dropped out.
I
Yeah. So
I transferred my junior year into the seminary, which then was here in Stanford, St. John Fisher House of Formation, and I took classes at Sacred Heart University. So I finished my undergrad degree in philosophy there with two tassels. I know that's very important to you, and summa cum laude. And then from there, the bishop assigned me to St. Joseph Seminary, more colloquially known as Dunwoody, or if you're a resident there, Funwoody. And I did my major seminary there for 4 years. Graduated in 2022, and was ordained a few weeks later.
wow, it's very concise. And then your first assignment is where you are now, and so
Yeah,
that brings
so
us up to today,
I've been
right?
here
More or less.
forever. But you mentioned you grew up in Michigan and then went to
Yes,
Catholic U.
I
So
was
take me from Michigan to Catholic U.
Oh, that's a 8-hour drive. So, but or an hour and 10-minute flight. But yeah, so I grew up in the Great Lakes state of Michigan, just outside of Ann Arbor in a small town. Um, and had great experiences there. People are very friendly, and the winters aren't too bad. And we have a lot of coastline, right? Got to show you the Lake Michigan, which we'll talk about another time. But there's also a bunch of other Great Lakes there. So, um, yeah, had a lot of fun. And then went to school there, public school. So didn't go to Catholic school, but went, had a very good experience throughout there. Went to the largest, I think it might now be the second largest school in the state in terms of square footage, which I don't know why
Not
they're
people.
measuring things, not people, maybe using people too. But I just remember because it was my elementary school was built or was across the street from the high school, and we saw it being built, and so yeah, and then I went there, and then I went back to elementary school and like, wow, the school elementary school shrank and the high school shrank as well. From my elementary school days. But yeah, I was there, and I got a postcard in the mail, as one does when you're approaching college decisions and applications, from the Catholic University of America in Washington D.C., our dual alma mater. And so I thought that sounds kind of interesting, and I knew I wanted to go to a Catholic college. To try out what the ecclesial education environment is like, and was looking at different schools and different programs, and DC really excited me, and Catholic U, I think, really interested me too. Their business school was really kind of in a huge growth phase, and had just become independent, became its own business school versus being a department. Um, and so I applied and I got accepted. So it's on Catholic U's fault that we're friends. And I applied as an international business major, which I guess we'll talk later, but that's sort of what I ended up doing. But they reached out, the econ chair, and said, I think you should study economics. And I had only taken like a half of an econ class in high school. I didn't really know what it was, but I'm like, oh, I'm a naive, impressionable high school senior, college freshman, a professor saying you should do something, I'll do it. And so it was actually a very fortuitous moment there where I did join the econ department and studied that. And there's always a saying that you don't love econ, you learn to love econ, because it can be a lot of math, a lot of proofs, and a lot of graphs, and a lot of notes and different things, which I guess that just summarizes much of higher education. Uh, but it was really rewarding and really interesting to learn about the foundations of the economy, how consumers make decisions, how businesses operate. And it was really cool about Catholic U's econ department is that, well, my core major classes were all econ focused, economics focused, so micro, macro, and statistics and econometrics and things. We were in the business school, and so we had to also take business classes. Not had to, we had the privilege, the joy. So accounting and finance and other things of that, like ethics and some other things,
Well, so
entrepreneurship.
I'm gonna interrupt you
Yeah.
because
Okay.
the ethics. This is a point of contention. I think that was a new requirement, and you took ethics with the philosophy school, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I took ethics twice. I had to. So yes, that's a good point. So at Catholic, you're required to take 4 philosophy classes, and so I took ethics with them. But they also have what was called, I think it was economics for business and statistics, which I took with a business school professor. So I took economics on both sides of that coin. So
I
I
was
saw what the yeah.
it was a point of contention because my ethics class, it was me who was
Uh-huh.
just a pure philosophy major, and then 4 or 5 seminarians from the St. John Paul II Seminary for DC, and
Mhm.
then 30 business majors. And it
Oh.
was a totally crazy dynamic. So much so that the professor, I wish I could remember his name. Um, he lived at McDonald's in the dorms.
Oh,
Sorry, in the
Hartman,
residence. Also,
Dr. Hartman.
Dr. Hartman. So he taught us ethics. He gave us different assignments. So he was like, the philosophy guys understand this and they get bored by the business majors. So they have to write like a 5 to 6 10 page paper on this, and the business majors get to do this. So he made the seminarians do something related to God and theology, and then he made the business major something. And I had always had to raise my hand. I said, "What about me?" He goes, yeah, what about you? You're not a seminarian and you're not a business major. You're just full. Like, what do you want to do in life? And I was like, I have no idea. So he was like, you can pick your assignment. So I always ended up picking the seminarian thing because I thought papers, I did not understand any of the business that they were trying to do. It was fun getting in fights with some of the business majors over like certain ethics and principles because I've been reading Aristotle and all my other classes, and they're just like, "Well, Aristotle says this." I'm like, you guys are weird," and I'm afraid of how business is going. So it was a crossover that was important, right? I think ethics is essential for business, but
Yes.
I didn't like that. I had to take classes with your people.
My people. So that's a little harsh, but I think somebody has to keep the lights on, and that's what business does, right? And ensures that we have opera, the right resources to make everything else possible.
Well, so my
And
question for you
so
is: you
yeah,
graduated. I know you graduated in 3.5 years. You're a December
three and a
graduate.
half
So the
years.
question
Yeah.
is: are you that smart, or is the business school that easy?
I like to think I'm that smart, and we'll see if anyone else thinks otherwise. Because yeah, I was also a luck because I had studied abroad over one of the summers. So I applied to two study abroad programs, thinking I'd get into one. And I got into both, and so I spent a summer at Oxford, which was a lot of fun. So I got to join the end of their Trinity term, and then a few weeks after the normal UK students had departed. But then I spent a fall in Rome, and then I over-elected. So it was it was more hard work actually than intellect or ease that helped me get through it all. So,
So you were really
but yes, 3.5 years.
you're an international economics major. So then, what did you? So what are you doing now? How did you go from college to your
Yes,
finance and special insurance, whatever it is,
whatever it is I do, I respond
profession?
to emails. It's my day job. So yeah, no, yeah, got a job working in corporate specialty insurance, which is really interesting and really challenging, and a lot of opportunity for to learn and to try things out. And so I've worked at one of the largest companies in the world, the 26th largest company in the world, right out of college. Well, first it was a not that big, and then we got acquired the day that I um, was hired. And so always say that we were acquired because I got hired. They're like, we got to have this company. Charles
Oh
Busch
my
is there.
gosh, they got
Uh,
him. They got him. We're gonna get him
they got
now.
him. So I helped to close the deal. And so we were acquired by the 26th largest company in the world. Um, and that was really a cool experience getting to see how that works, how a medium-sized company, or it was very large, but a medium size in terms of some of those bigger insurance companies,
Comparatively.
uh, comparatively. Yeah. So I think it was 12 or 15,000 people, maybe 7,000. I don't know. It was in the high thousands, low 10,000s ish. That's not the right phrase, but
Yeah, it's a
7 to 50
squiggly
to
approximate
12.
sign.
Yes, squiggly approximate sign. You can look it up. And then a company that had like 200,000 employees and offices in over 200 countries. And I didn't know there were 200 countries. I would have guessed there was like 180 something. And I think it
Isn't
depends on
there
how you count.
235 countries?
235? I never heard that many.
I
So
I
this is
well, this might be
there's always more.
controversial.
They keep making new countries every day. So right, just today I was reading about Somaliland and how there's a pressure to get them more international recognition so they can become their own country. But anyway, we digress. And then I joined a smaller company, a startup. I was employee 43. Now we're over 400. And so that has been really, really exciting. And again, I've had incredible opportunities to learn and to try things out and to grow. But also I have the luxury, not the luxury, the unique ability to travel a lot for my work because we service global clients. So I've gotten to visit as far flung places as like Cape Town and Singapore and Paris and London a lot. And boy, I always forget different places, but yeah, Poland, Hungary,
Asia
Italy.
countries, no.
Not a ton in Asia than Singapore. Singapore is kind of like Asia comes to you at Singapore. But I've been to the Japan's airport, so that counts.
Sure.
In Tokyo, uh, and then I've flown over parts of Asia, lots of Asia. They don't let you use in-flight Wi-Fi over India, so that's a fun fact for you. And I had a trip to go to India, and then COVID hit, so that's my uh, story of almost going to India. And then yeah, but yeah, and then New York, Chicago, and some other places. So yeah, I get to see a lot, learn a lot about how different people think, different cultures, different ways they approach business,
You didn't even
and get
mention
to support.
Bermuda.
Oh yeah, Bermuda. Get to go
Your
to
favorite
Bermuda.
place to
So
go?
my favorite, get to wear shorts in the office, and so that's a huge perk, and I think we should adopt that wholeheartedly. So yeah, that's a really cool place, Bermuda. People there are very friendly, and when I went to Bermuda the first time, I had planned every evening I was going to. Every free evening I had, I was going to do different excursions, go to different sites and on the island. And the first night, I cut my foot in the water, and I had to
Oh,
go to the Bermudian
yes.
hospital, the emergency room,
I remember
and it
that
was my last
picture.
ER trip. Yeah, yes, of my foot getting cut on some coral. And so, yeah, but that was a neat experience, a learning opportunity about how you got to wear water shoes if you're in Bermuda. And everyone told me that they're like, "Why aren't you wearing water shoes?" Like, no one told me. That wasn't on the packing list. Bring water shoes to
It
Bermuda,
wasn't
but I
it
just saw the
wasn't on the
beautiful
tourist
beaches.
website.
It was not. It was not top things to bring to Bermuda. I was like, I brought sunglasses and a swimsuit, and then obviously my work stuff. So, but yeah, obviously there's a lot of hard work too, right? I always tell people they think it's glitz and glam getting to go around the world, and it's an immense privilege, of course. But it's like you're on vacation and you have to work. So you're in meetings. There's been some countries I've only been to for a day trip or a very short time, and so didn't get to see all the sites that people get to see on postcards, but still got to make a lot of good connections with people and friends and learn a lot. So yeah, it's really quite unique. And yeah, I've got another trip coming up to London in a few weeks here, and then Serbia, and I think that might be those are at least the ones I've booked. Oh, and then Italy. So yeah, but it's all coming together, and it sounds really pretentious when I say, "Well, this one time in Burma." I've not been to Burma or Myanmar, whichever I can't remember what I'm supposed to call it.
Yeah, don't
But
ask me.
yeah, so
Well, I
I try to
think
pepper it in. Hopefully, you've noticed that in my conversations with you. Whenever you're like, "Have you ever had to install a bicycle tire?" Like, well, there's one time when I was in Tunis, we had to
yeah,
take a rickshaw.
I just ignore it. It's your thing. But
Yeah.
honestly, we've had a quite an overlap, right? I don't think many people. The joke is like, you're an econ major, and I studied in the economy of salvation, which is an actual theological term. But I have
Yes.
found your with just our friendship and your background to be incredibly helpful in my parish ministry because there are a lot of business minded people in my town, CEOs, CFOs, founders of companies, founders of hedge funds. I the list goes on and on and on. I'm still trying to. I was golfing the other day with somebody who works in the commodities market, and I was asking him like, what, look, what is a commodity? And um,
Why are we
so
marketing it?
yeah, like what's the deal? And so like that was interesting, but a lot of high performers, a lot of high achievers, and so they're like type A people. Like the majority of my parish are type A people, really really good, have high expectations and high demands of their priests, as I think they should, right? Like emails the bane of my existence, but I've learned like in this parish, like I have to be responsive to emails because they're used to firing off hundreds of emails a day and getting responses immediately. Um, and so a lot of it, I think I've been going to you with like just like translating things like, what does this person mean? What are their expectations? What do they do? Because I found like if I can speak the language of business or at least like understand what they're doing, right? And show interest, that goes such a long way, right? I think most people love talking about themselves, but as a priest, I can't be the one talking about myself.
Mhm.
And so like you've been helping me over these last few years, trying to figure out like what questions to ask, like and getting more and more interested in it. So I think over the last few years, we've have like an organic understanding of like a development of like how there's like such an overlap in what we do.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. I think it's mutually beneficial because yeah, there's always like ethical boundaries and like things that I can take to you, right, and say, hey, what would the church teach on this, or what's would the saints reflect on these points, and like usury, that's a complicated one. We'll do a podcast on that
You
because I
love
work with
bringing
a lot
that
of
up.
banks, and for the record, Pope Gregory, I can't remember which one, but he issued a letter saying insurance is not usury. So I've got to remember which letter that is and which Gregory, because otherwise I could get in trouble.
But I still think it's a
And
scam.
I still it's yeah, insurance has its value,
You
and we'll
had
talk
me.
about that someday.
I'll admit, and because we can do an explanation of that. You had me in insurance, convincing insurance is good, and then I got totally lost with reinsurance. Then that's when I was like,
Yes.
this is a whole thing. This is bad, but it's not. It's how you make your
Is
livelihood. I just
yes.
don't understand it, and so naturally, I'm afraid of it.
Yes. So yeah, but it's a very good point. And so yeah, but no, getting your thoughts on different things. And also I think you're really helpful because we do a lot with New York, so translating New Yorker culture. Right. You
Very
tell people you're
different than
from New York, even though
the
you're not
Midwest.
from New York.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
which
you
is your way
betcha.
of
That's
saying
more
no.
Minnesota, Wisconsin. Oh yeah, yeah, okay. Versus that. Yeah. So it's good you figured out how I can say no politely.
Well, I'll
Versus the New
admit,
Yorkers, they just look at you.
yes, the New Yorkers, they're very blunt to the point. And if they're making fun of you, they like you. That's if they're nice to you, watch out. They're gonna do something that they don't like you. But it's really interesting. I have kind of said this to some people in small circles, but now I can say it publicly to hopefully the nation who is tuning in that you inspired me to read a book. It took some time for me to read um, that probably has been the most influential book in my priesthood as far
Wow.
as things go. And it's not a theology book, it was a business book. By all people, it's written by Charles Koch from the Koch Industries, Koch Foundation. And
Both.
it's called Good Prophet. And reading that book has like totally changed my approach to ministry and to working in the office life. And I don't know. Let's. Is there a reason you recommended that book to me?
Yes. Well, his name was Charles, and so I said, "Well, that's me, and it's about profit, and we got to make profit." So I don't see where the downside is. No, it comes from Catholic U, the Busch School of Business, no relation, co-hosts a an annual conference with the Knapp Institute, and my senior year they co-hosted it on campus in Washington D.C. And the keynote speaker was Charles Koch, and the theme was good profit. It was this book. And so I remember going to the conference and learning a lot and hearing Charles Coe speak, who's famous for not speaking a lot, right? He doesn't do a lot of interviews, he doesn't do a lot of public appearances. So it was really a treat to have him come talk. And I think a lot of people make him out to be a boogeyman, but a lot of people make out billionaires to be boogeymen or boogie women. And there's a lot to unpack there because I think it's not quite so cut and dry. And so I think we're seeing how he approaches things. Now it's kind of like there's a reputation that he has that I don't think is fully earned, and people just apply to him. Because if you read Good Prophet, I remember I read it on a flight to California once, the book, and I think it's all about not to spoil it or to steal intellectual property, but it's about serving others, right? Recognizing that every leader in the company has to serve their employees. Every employee has to serve the customer, right? And that you're responsible for what you do, right? And that if you're doing things well, you'll get more responsibilities. And if you're, and about doing things honorably and ethically and following the law. And how his big thing is he says, I only fire people that I should never have hired. Right. Like if you make your job obsolete, right, I'm going to keep you around because you're good if you're doing the right things for the right reasons. Um, but if you're stealing or lying or cheating, that's not tolerated. And so a lot of those principles really emanated from what I had learned at Catholic U. And it was interesting. Charles Koch's not particularly devout. He's not Catholic. He's an atheist, I think. But what came a lot with the conference is how a lot of that overlapped with Catholic social teaching, right? And that there was really a lot of the same principles that Charles Koch has learned in his business that the Catholic Church has taught for a while now, and how we can both understand each other. The church is this great repository of human culture and thought, and of understanding how God's plan works out and what makes humans flourish, what makes business flourish, right? Like they're not mutually exclusive. It's not, oh, your business is successful and people will suffer, or vice versa. Um, and so it's really when people are doing well, businesses are doing well, and vice versa. So we want to be able to understand that. And so I think the Charles Koch book for me was really helpful, and it's a good read, I think. And it's particularly good for people who maybe aren't super business focused because he talks about how to apply these lessons in the nonprofit space and other spaces. I think you, Father, right, have been using it a lot at your parish and understanding how to run things and how to approach problems. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the whole idea of that he talks about in the book of just like virtue based hiring and like the whole idea of like the culture, right, from the top down or bottom up, right? It needs everyone needs to be on the same page. And culture is something that you can't really, it's hard to teach, right? Like you can't teach virtue. So you have to, but you can teach the job, right? And so that whole idea of making sure people are bought into the company, right? That they're virtuous and that they're ethical, right? The was I gotta forget the principle, but it's like 100% compliance 100% of the time, right? Um, and so that idea of like everybody needs to, like, these are the rules, these are the guidelines, and like there are no exceptions, like incredibly high standards. Um, and then also the idea of like subsidiarity that he talks about, which is a super Catholic principle. And that idea of like let the experts do what their expertise is in and trust them, right? Like somebody who's working at a plant and understands the machines, has been working them everyday life, is going to know more about maintenance and what the machines need to do and updating way better than somebody who's in an executive level, working hundreds of miles away. So like let's actually like take his opinion seriously and stuff. So I've been learning that, right? Like my music director or right the music people, right, like they know what they're doing, so like have a greater confidence and trust in them. Religious ed, right, like these people have studied it, and so like trust their expertise, right? It's made, I think, us more as priests more collaborative rather than feeling like we have to take everything on our own. And also it helps with people in the pews, right? The people in the pews are experts in their field, right? Fundraising, efficiency, all that stuff. So how can we take their expertise in the corporate world, in the private sector, and bring that over into the church world and have the parish firing on all cylinders? And I think trying to translate good prophet into my ministry has kind of been kind of where we kind of started talking about this podcast very seriously. I think one of the first original names we thought of maybe was Good Prophets, Prophets, as a play on words. But I think reading that book and trying to implement it into the parish, or even just like into my own mindset and conceptualization. No, so I think the that idea of the business world and the theological world and the pastoral and the practical is what really got us to talking about like how business can learn from faith and what faith can learn from business, and that the overlap is really there because it's human, right? And faith is all about God coming down to man, and elevating man to God, and business, rightly ordered, is the flourishing of man. And so the ends are very similar, very like communicable. And so I think that's when we started to realize there's really nothing out there in the world, the business world or the Catholic world, as prominent as we think there. This would be really, everyone has a podcast, so why can't we? But also just like a podcast that's very topical and meaningful and practical to everyone who works, right? And then how can we live um, our work as a means towards our faith? Not that we earn salvation or anything like that, but how can every aspect of our lives be sanctified and be made holy?
Yeah, no, I think that was precisely, yeah, because we have so much great ideas to share with the world, but also to hear from other people who have good ideas. Because yeah, there's right. That's something I learned in business school, right? Is that you have to find your niche, right? And I think this is kind of a niche that you and I both have a lot of interest. And or I think if we didn't have to do this to fill an hour's worth of content, we'd probably still talk about it for an hour, or do the research or think about these things. And being able to recognize what the church teaches, right? Pope Leo the 13th, right, talked a lot about it. He's become a point person, as we have Leo the 14th now, so people are interested in what the last Leo thought. Um, and also, yeah, recognizing that both sides inform one another, and how we can learn from each other, how best business practices can help make a parish or a diocese or another apostolate thrive, but at the same time, how the ethics, the teachings, the values, the traditions of the faith can help people work in the secular world, right, and inform that they're ethical and responsible, and care for others. And so I think we speak not entirely as experts, but much rather maybe as students, right, from our respective sides, and trying to learn more about this. And so that's why we came up with white collars, right, on Veritas Catholic Network, and the white collars, right. Father, do you want to explain how we came up with the name? Because we bounced around with a few of them. You mentioned some of the names that didn't make the cut, but how what was this one? This was your idea, right? You get credit for it.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a chat GPT involved. But I think this idea of, right, like business and faith overlap so much. And so trying to find a title that works with that, is clear, and also maybe a little bit more interesting and intriguing. And so this idea that, like, there are white collar jobs, and that's the majority of the people that I'm working with now. It's, you're in a white collar position, right? The private sector, all that stuff. And so and then realizing, kind of by looking in the mirror, like, I have a white collar job. I am literally wearing a white collar around my neck, as every priest does. And so it was just like, oh my gosh, the overlap has been right there in front of us forever, ever since the white collar thing was invented or used in colloquial terms. And so, yeah, that is it. That's the idea, that this is a place and a podcast where faith and business come together and overlap, and realize that, like, everyone thinks like a priest either doesn't work or works too much or doesn't really know what a priest does. And so I think to give some insight into what priests do, right? There is like such thing like clerical work that is evolved and comes from the priesthood, as well as just like how like just like the spiritual insights that I have that your average person doesn't have, because it literally is my 24/7. I'm supposed to be an expert in spiritual theology and morality and everything like that. So to be able to express that, but also to translate it into a practical sense, and what's more practical than working, which everyone does, hopefully Monday through Friday. And we pray for those who don't have jobs or need jobs, right? Um, this story actually came up. I tell a story all the time, Charles. You know this story. You've heard me say it a number of
Yeah.
times. And it came up. Monsignor and I were in the kitchen making dinner, and he mentioned this to me, and I just went, yes, I tell it to everyone. It's like, right, I always think of the Saint Jose Maria Escriva story. He was a priest in the 20th century in Spain, and he was infamous, I would say, for his kind of poverty, in the sense of, like, he didn't like to.
Infamous or famous?
Infamous among, well, the story will make sense of why he's infamous. Maybe it's famous. The people who followed him were not impressed with him because he didn't like to waste things. Um, and so he had shoes that had holes in it, and he would refuse to get new shoes. So I think that's why his poverty became a little infamous, because he was around students and
Ah,
workers, and he had these terrible shoes, and they're like, you're not like, you don't impress us. So they were forcing him to get new shoes, and they said, go to this cobbler down the street. He's a Catholic. He'll fix your shoes. And his response was, you want me to go to this cobbler down the road because you say he's a Catholic, but he's not even the best cobbler in the city, which means he's not a good Catholic. And so he's that story's been passed down through everyone who knew everyone who knew Saint Jose Maria, and everyone who's involved in Opus Dei, which is the group that he founded. And that idea that, like, being Catholic means you give it your all, right? You give it your best, and if you have a trade or a vocation or you're in business, like, being Catholic demands excellence, right? Virtue in the Greek world, Aristotle's philosophy, right? The word that they use for excellence is translated as virtue, right? Virtue and excellence are synonymous with, right? Virtue is the human flourishing and being excellent in all capacities. So that idea of, like, this is a podcast for us to grow in excellence, right? As much as just like conversing, but also for our listeners and those who watch, right? To like be excellent in everything. That's like, and not, I said this in a homily a few weeks ago. I said my biggest fear is that my tombstone will read, "Here lies Father Lomnitzer, a mediocre person." Um, right, and I think at the core that's everybody's fear, but we just don't know how to take the next step. And so that's where that's where the idea for this podcast came, and I think what our listeners can expect.
Yeah. No, that's really good reflection. I think, Father, yeah, your point there, that story with Jose Maria, it really does resonate, I think, a lot with us in the business world because people can think, oh, well, if you're in the business, you're purely secular, you don't care about what's good, right? Or how does this really interplay with your faith? And recognizing that, yes, that our talents and our skills and our opportunities are gifts from God, and how we execute on those, and how we have a high standard, and that we deliver a good product that reflects that. Like, our reputation is not just our reputation; it's the reputation of our church, of our faith, and
Yeah,
that we need to be striving for excellence. And obviously, we'll fall, and we won't be perfect, but we should be trying and shooting for the ideal, and always being aware of those ideals. And I think that's, yeah, a really good point, because yeah, it's easy to just say, oh, well, if try to make like a Catholic enclave. But if you're doing something really well, like I think of Mozart performing music at a very high level, right? That was used at church, right? And at the same time, it was also very good, high quality music that still stands the test of time today. I mean, you probably hear Mozart in concerts a lot, right? Even if it's religious themes. And so recognizing that it's not like, oh, there's the Christian way of doing things and there's the world way of doing things, and they're mutually exclusive, but that the best way to do things is the way in line with those values, and like the Christian way is the good way of doing things. So yeah, that's definitely, and I think, yeah, to our point of being able to explore these ideas and these concepts and examples of this, right? We're going to try to interview people, allegedly, right? So we have a lineup of some connections that we know, people we think that others would be interested in, and it's really fun because there's people I'm interested in. And I think when you say, hey, do you want to be on our podcast? It's a lot cooler than saying, like, I just want to have your autograph and ask you all the questions about how you figured everything out. Right.
yeah.
And that's really what this is going to be.
This is a great excuse for us to try to get to meet some people that we're just fans of, right? Try to get their expertise. So hopefully, that's also one of the motivations of starting this, right? Is to just talk to people who are experts and really cool, and both secular, Christian, and Catholic, right? Because we can learn it from things, and we can baptize things. And I think also to follow that, right, to do case studies, right, of this is the way that the business people study, and everything. Philosophy majors work in hypotheticals, so to change my modus operandi into look at case studies, right, of businesses that have done really well, businesses and things that have failed, both in the secular world and in the private world, and maybe even like parish models, right? Things we can learn from stuff like that. Again, going back to that Koch book, I think he was really humble in one sense of providing case studies where things didn't go according to plan, and like how he learned from that, right? Thomas Edison famously said, right, I didn't fail 100 times. I learned how to not make a light bulb 100 times. So I think to look at case studies as well, both highs and lows of things that we
Yeah.
can learn from.
Yeah, I believe Warren Buffett has a line, it's good to learn from your mistakes, but it's better to learn from other people's mistakes. And so recognizing, yeah, we'll do some deep dives on some case studies, things that didn't go super well. Enron, I think, will be a fun one to talk about. But also topical events, right? So there's things going on in the news, right? Business is interesting. People are asking questions. Well, what about tariffs, right? What about this? What about that, right? What about crypto? What about, these different trade agreements, right? What about AI? And with chip makers and all these different things, and energy production. And so being able to see what's relevant there, and what can the church help us understand these challenges, right? But also recognizing that there's the economic truths and faith, the truths of faith aren't competing truths, they're truths. And so trying to understand those types of situations, what's going on, right? What would an economist think? Because I think you and I approach things very differently. I like to, I'm very, give me the data, let me see what's actually happening, right? What's the trends? How can we understand this, model this, predict this, what happened last time? And you approach it a little more, I think, philosophical, a little more theological, more top down, right? Like, well, what's the ideal, right? What are the principles? What does our faith teach, right? Am I putting words in your mouth? Is that kind of how you tend to approach things a little bit more differently, like bring the divine down versus, yeah,
I always get upset when you call me an ideologue or an idealist. I think, but I no, I do think right. That's the approach, right? It's the philosophical idea from Aristotle, right? Is in the end is our beginning. So if we don't know where we're going, we don't know where to start. And so that idea of like, well, what's the goal here? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? And then what are the obstacles in that way, right? I think right. Compromising is big. I think people are afraid to do that and are afraid of that word. But right, if we don't know what the end goal is or what we're trying to achieve, then we can't really approach it. So, but I also found that our conversations have been quite productive, right? Because I think people tend to silo those discussions, right? You either just thinking in the ideals or you're just thinking too practically, and so to be able to come together and say like, I don't know, this is the data, this is history, this is the situation now presently, and this is how we can work towards right something better, right? Incrementalization, I guess. And yeah, and through that, right, like we need a principle understanding of Catholic social teaching, and so we'll do deep dive episodes on what the church actually teaches, because as the famous Full and Sheen line goes, people don't hate the church; they hate what they think the church is. And I think when people hear the word social teaching or social justice, they have a just like their mind immediately goes to one thing, right? Either for or against, but it kind of again, their your own biases and perception, mine included, get involved in that. And so what does the church actually teach? And what did Pope Leo XIII actually say when it comes to the dignity of the worker and stuff like this? And then how can we translate that um, to everyday life, right? Especially very philosophical, right? We can talk in the forms and the ideas and the stratosphere, but like, what does that mean for me right now, today in 2025? Especially with everything going and the world changing so fast. So to look at everything that is here, we have a wealth of information, right? It's all at our fingertips, and so just how do we take it, digest it, understand it, and translate it into who we are and who we live as.
yeah. Or try to live best, right? But yeah, no, I think yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to
Yeah.
take those deep dives, right, and to finally read those things I've been putting off reading, right, or haven't read since undergrad, and being able to understand them and I think discuss them. And I think we're, we have a humorous banter, right, and so hopefully that kind of makes it a little more lively than just watching a YouTube clip of a professor wrote, right, reading some sort of Thomas
Oh my
Aquinas thing.
gosh. The amount of times that I have tried to Google some economic thing and it's just like somebody's just talking in a way that like I just don't understand, or it's like an hour long lecture. It's like, dude, what are the spark notes? So I think the hope is, right, these are serious topics, right? They affect people's lives, but to do in a way that's understandable first and foremost. And I always tell you when you're going too far, and I know you'll tell me when I speak in Greek. And that idea of just like this needs to be helpful. If it's not helpful, it's not useful.
And look at that, you're
Um,
becoming practical after all, Father. So
I try to be somewhat practical. I just heard another Thomas Edison quote. This is the most I've ever quoted Thomas Edison in my life, who said, allegedly, Thomas Edison said that vision without action is hallucination, right? So as much as we want to have the vision of what we are and what business is, we want to have actionable items, so that we're not crazy, but that this is something that we can do and take into our everyday lives.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, but no, I think this will be a fun little adventure. We'll see. We'll try to put out some regular content, right, on this. And I think they'll be playing it on the airwaves, is what we're told, but also in a host of podcast players, right? And obviously, if you're listening to this, you figured out how to get to it. So, we've made that far enough. We'll also have a podcast, right? Or not podcast, we do a podcast. We'll also have an Instagram where I think there'll be some clips and different things, and you can stay up to date with what we're working on, and what we're sharing. Also, we want to hear from you all on topics that are of interest, right? And different things and questions we can ask of different people that are coming on our show, and really make this an exciting opportunity to learn and to grow. And take advantage of the unique placement that we have in this modern age, right? I think when you and I were kids, to do something like this, we would have had to sit at a radio station with a big antenna And instead, now, we're hundreds of miles away. I'm in Washington, D.C., and you're in Connecticut. And there's a few Wi-Fi connections here and there, or issues here and there. But otherwise, yeah, we're able to share a lot of cool things and try this out. And I'm one who listens to a lot of podcasts when it comes to commuting or running errands and things. And so it's nice to know that we'll put some good things out in the ether there. So, and we're very trendy now that we have a podcast. So I feel like I've hit key millennial now by having a podcast.
Yeah. So, yeah, everyone who's listening, you can expect a new episode weekly where Charles and I will talk about the things that we address, right? Case studies, deep dives, guests from various platforms. And you can not miss an episode by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you prefer to listen to us. You can even download the Veritas Catholic Radio app and listen to us live when they're streaming, or just to find episodes and clips through the app. And then our Instagram is at White Collars Podcast, and the same as our Substack, White Collars Podcast Substack, where we'll put some notes, some book recommendations, some show notes, and another place to stay in contact. And there'll be as Substack goes, a newsletter that when we post something, you'll know right away. So the best way to stay in touch is to subscribe, so we can, you never miss a thing, and we know how to reach you.
And if you have any complaints, send them to Father Lomnitzer. Compliments I'll take. So
Yes, we have a special
right.
filing bin on my computer. It's called the Trash app.
No, we want constructive criticism. We always like feedback, but yes, yeah, we will. Yeah, so it should be a fun adventure, and looking forward to seeing how this all pans out. And one day they'll look back at this artifact as our Neil Armstrong moment, our first episode here, which is now complete more or less. And yeah, unless they tell us to re-record it again, so in which case we will have another first episode as our first episode. But yeah, no, this is really exciting, and looking forward to going on the journey and seeing what pans out. And most importantly, I think we'll be making our mothers happy, because they've been kind of keen to, hear when this project's going to get off the ground so they can listen to it. So we have at least 2 listeners, and shout out to our moms
Mom,
for at least giving us that support.
Yeah. So this has been the first episode of White Collars, Veritas Catholic Radio production. We'll see you next week. Until then, work hard and pray harder.